Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, powered by Leduc Entertainment. Today, I'm joined by Aly Keeley, the founder of TrustWell Compliance Consulting. Aly, I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. How about you go ahead and tell me about TrustWell and what you do, maybe how you got started?
Yeah, so at TrustWell Compliance Consulting, ultimately our mission is to empower behavioral health agencies and healthcare providers, as well as corporate organizations. And we provide strategic compliance solutions that ensure regulatory adherence, mitigating risk, optimizing financial operations. So we provide a lot of expert guidance in regulatory compliance as well as legal services. So that's mainly what we do, but we work and we help organizations navigate really the complex industry of regulations and just make sure that they're providing accurate, confident, and good care with integrity.
Okay. How did you get started in the consulting in this particular sense?
So I've had many jobs and I've worked in all different industries, and I saw how a lot of organizations don't really have compliance programs, or they don't really have, I would say, strategic operations to, I would say, make them run efficiently. And through my work, I've just decided, you know what? I think that I can create these compliance solutions so that businesses can run more efficiently, because a lot of the times they don't know that they're not being efficient until there's either a lawsuit, until they're facing penalties, or until there's audits. So what my firm does is we come in and we try to mitigate those risks before they're even an issue.
Okay. Give me kind of a day-to-day of what that looks like with maybe somebody that you're onboarding and working with maybe a new client.
Yeah, sure. So I would say our biggest client would be in healthcare and behavioral health. A lot of the times, these agencies are run by federal, local, and on state level. So oftentimes they have to go through HIPAA compliance, privacy audits. A lot of them work with Medicare or Medicaid. So there's a lot of times we provide assistance with CMS regulations, reimbursement compliance, as well as fraud prevention. So a lot of times we're working with, for example, a telehealth care provider who provides mental health services, and they're utilizing Medicaid. And oftentimes, if they're billing for Medicaid, there's times when they don't get reimbursed for everything that they're billing for. So we'll come in and we will provide an audit as well as appeal the billing denial, and then help that company get reimbursed for the funds that they're owed.
Okay.
So I would say that's our biggest client.
Okay.
Would definitely be with Medicare and Medicaid compliance, as well as HIPAA compliance and privacy audits.
Okay. So that makes sense to me why in healthcare there has to be a ton of regulation, and
Correct.
Making sure that nobody is everything is run above board and everything. So that I can see how that would be a huge help, making sure that everything's above board. What about other maybe other situations outside of healthcare have you run into?
I would probably say there's been, besides healthcare, there have been, for example, as far as legal and corporate advisory services that my firm provides, there's a lot of, so majority of the medical staff that we have encountered with, we can also provide credentialing and licensing assistance. So a lot of medical staff, such as APNs or therapists, they have to hold, these credentials, and they have to get reviewed yearly and making sure that they're up to date. And sometimes large healthcare platforms or networks don't always make sure that, hey, like this psychiatrist is, their license is still good so they can still practice. So we can come in and do an audit and making sure that everybody is making sure they're licensed, they're compliant, and that they are credentialed correctly. So sometimes there are agencies that aren't credentialed with, for example, insurance companies, but they're accepting certain clientele under these insurance companies. And they're like, well, why aren't we getting paid? Well, that's because you're providing services to a client who essentially you're not credentialed with their insurance. So we can come in and provide credentialing services to all of their staff that are on board to ensure that they're getting what they deserve, essentially.
With that audit, or maybe some other factors within your firm, what would you say that your firm does exceptionally well, or maybe like you're most passionate about and you love working with the most? Like what aspect of compliance would you say y'all do the best at?
That's a great question. I would say that we don't really provide like a one size fits all solution. We make sure that all of the services that we offer are very tailored, very specific to the industry or the client that we're working with. So we make sure we take our time. I have a very diverse network of employees that work with me from all different backgrounds. So it definitely, I feel like, gives us a leg up when working with certain industries. And that's how we're able to work with multiple industries. It just seems like healthcare and behavioral health are like the top ones that need our services. But I mean, we've worked in child welfare, we've worked in like with government contracts, we've worked with other corporate organizations on levels that you wouldn't think that compliance would be important, but when you think about it, like every industry needs compliance. But I think we really do exceptionally well at like tailoring our services to the client. We make sure that I choose somebody who has expertise in that area. I don't kind of just be like, here, we have this in, you get this. So I make sure that this person can really handle the case that they're getting.
Do you ever find yourself to be the bottleneck in that procedure? Or do you, because you focus so well on like finding the right people for the right position, you can do a lot of like proper offloading to handle those processes?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I definitely, in the beginning when it was just myself, obviously, but now that I started hiring employees, I make sure that they're specific to certain industries and that they have a certain expertise and deep understanding of real world challenges for that industry. So all the attorneys that I have on board, all the compliance officers that I have on board are all from different industries. So that way I'm able to have not only diverse employees, but I'm able to get diverse clients. And that kind of prevents the bottleneck.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you said that the majority of your work is within healthcare, but then you have a lot of other industries that are maybe branches that have some overlap. So you're not learning a brand new skill set every client that comes on board. There is some overlap, and then part of that is also hiring the right people that are experts within that particular industry.
Correct.
Okay. I'm getting a better idea there. What about current problems, or like where is your firm at, like with what your goals are for the future, and like what problems are you currently trying to address organizationally or in going into new markets? Like what's the snapshot of where y'all are at right now?
So I would definitely say majority of the problems that I'm facing now is I just started my practice, in summer of last year, and I didn't expect the target market to be like an abundance of like, I didn't realize how the services I offer were a high need. So, and with that being said, what has been the hardest is trying to, I would say, create a streamlined process of when a client contacts us and making sure that the intake specialist knows the right questions to ask, making sure that, that they're getting all the information that's necessary, and then providing us with kind of like a snapshot of like, can we actually help this organization or can we refer them to somebody else? So that has been the hardest, because thankfully I have a great friend who works for the Office of Developmental Programs for the state of Pennsylvania. So they have a monthly bulletin that goes out to a whole bunch of mental health care providers, healthcare networks, clinics, etc. So my firm was advertised through that bulletin, and then we started getting like tons of calls and inquiries about, hey, can you help us out? Because all of the agencies that are run like on a state level, they have to go through audits. So they want to make sure they pass the audit, or they can either be shut down or put on a provisional, etc. So they want to avoid that. So a lot of the times we're going in kind of just double checking, making sure everything is good and great. But I think the hardest thing is trying to maintain the business, because there's so much business coming in, but there's only 6 of us. So it's definitely, that has been the hardest thing. And it's like, we want to hire more people, but I feel like before I do that, I need to create a better streamlined process of how we're getting clients in and how to like kind of rearrange them through our business.
To find the best one, to make sure that they are a good fit and you do want to work with these clients long term, but also to make sure that you have the structure and the framework to support onboarding. How are you doing? I mean, you mentioned this bulletin. Is that what you said?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How else are you doing, like, your marketing in order to get out there?
So honestly, I think it's really just been, I've worked for so many agencies, just like, I'm also an adoption assessor. So I work with like a lot of child welfare agencies, and I work with a lot of kids who have like behavioral health issues or mental health issues. So oftentimes I'm, having conversations with these agencies, and then it just comes in the topic like, hey, I do have a practice where I do X, Y, and Z. And that's kind of, it's really just been word of mouth and just collaborating with other professionals. A majority of the inquiries that I've received are from the bulletin, because majority of them are behavioral health agencies through the state of Pennsylvania or New Jersey. But I have considered kind of making like a social media page, but really more of like creating like little snippet videos to like tell people like what we're about and what we can offer. Because when people hear compliance, it's kind of like a snooze fest. They don't really either understand what it is, or they think it's just boring. And so I need to create something to make compliance sound fun. Like, you need to have this for your business because, and then I think like trying to create like a fun like social media page about the services we offer would be a great way to get more business. But right now, thankfully, that's not a problem. But I think in the future, I think that would definitely like broaden my industry and target market, because my target market right now has just been like healthcare or behavioral health.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much fun we can make compliance, right?
Yeah.
But I think you are onto something that, there is a certain danger that, hey, if you don't have these things in place, this could happen, and we really don't want that to happen for you and your business. So,
correct.
That makes sense to me. I think you have a lot of cool things that you could do to spread the word there. I see that you are certified. You are a certified ethics and compliance professional.
Correct.
Could you tell me about that, and maybe what principles you believe organizations need to prioritize specifically? And I know that could differ depending on the industry, but I'd love for you to talk about that.
So I'm definitely the kind of person where once I figure something out, I want to make sure like, how can I be the best at it? So once I got into compliance, I was like, what is going to make me the best compliance officer? So I kind of did some research, and if I get these certifications, it kind of gives me a leg up. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can take these exams, get these certifications. And then I just feel like when you have these certifications, people will take you more seriously, because not everybody does, it's just going the extra mile. So I wanted to ensure that the services that I'm providing are accurate, because a lot of the data that I do receive or that I have received, can be outdated. So by joining this, compliance association, I was able to get certified. And then I feel that kind of gave me a leg up in the industry. And that's how I'm kind of moving so fast. I mean, on top of the fact that, I have, other experience that has helped me. But I think being a certified compliance and ethics professional has definitely given me a leg up, because I think continuous education is important, because regulations are ever evolving, laws are always changing. And so I think having this certification, it has shown me that providing proactive compliance over reactive responses, um, and showing clients how don't wait until there's a problem. When you start your business or your organization, you should build these compliance programs and solutions into your culture rather than waiting for an audit or a lawsuit or a regulatory penalty. Having a strong compliance framework, helps prevent issues before they even arise. So I think that's essentially why why I got the certification, because it does, put me in the room with other professionals who have been in the industry longer than me. And I feel like, they take me more seriously having these certifications.
And maybe like you said, you can learn from them, these other professionals as well, and see what they're doing well and how you can incorporate that into your practice.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So you had mentioned earlier about the adoption process. Tell me a bit more about that. How you got started there, and why that's a big deal for you.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually adopted when I was 6, and when I lived in Ohio, I was a social worker, and I worked with a lot of children who, obviously didn't receive permanency, and it kind of like got me thinking about, my own adoption situation. And when I kind of reached out to the agency that I was adopted through, they didn't have any record or anything about me ever. So it was just like I was like, this is so weird. So that's kind of like what kind of pushed me to continue becoming a certified adoption assessor and making sure that, children who come into the child welfare system and, they don't get lost. A lot of children, can spend all of their years up until 18 in the foster care system. And so becoming an adoption assessor and making sure that, children are moving through the process seamlessly. A lot of times, like children in foster care, they have a social worker, and their birth family is working a case plan for 15 to 18 months. And then the goal of the agency is to give that child permanency. And a lot of times it slips through the cracks where either there's not enough workers. I mean, they're underpaid, understaffed. And so kids will sit in foster care for years when that's actually illegal. And so once I became a certified adoption assessor, I started contracting with other child welfare agencies to assist them in moving kids out of foster care and either adopted or even legal custody to a relative or a friend or a family member, et cetera, just to get them out of the system. And so through that, I think oftentimes in child welfare, they're just checking a lot of boxes, and they're not ensuring that regulations are properly implemented to protect the best interest of children. And so that's where I come in, and, they come to me because, not only do they want to kind of get this kid out of foster care, but, it's also that I feel like every child deserves permanency, whether that's back with their birth family and they're reunified, or whether that's adopted or maybe a kinship provider, et cetera. So I think that it's important for me to continue doing that work, although it's not essentially compliance work. But when I do work with these child welfare agencies, I do let them know, like, hey, if you kind of tighten up X, Y, and Z, this would not be happening. But a lot of the time, it falls on deaf ears because, these agencies it's a hard industry overall. So I don't know, like, how it's like it's going to be a long process before I think there would be any change in it, honestly.
Give me an example of like something you've seen, like, hey, if you tighten up this thing, this will like this even this small act could have like exponential impact in getting this child permanency?
So I would say there needs to be like a standardized, transparent process. Each state has its own laws when it comes to adoption and child welfare. And so that leads to inconsistencies and inefficiencies. If I feel like if the country created more uniform national standards, that would help streamline the process and reduce delays in children receiving permanency. If it was, hey, this child came into care for abuse, neglect, etc., their birth parent has this amount of time, doesn't matter what state, they have 15 months to mitigate the reason that their child came into foster care. If they don't complete it in that time, unfortunately, your child is going to be either, we're going to, recruit for an adoptive family. We're going to recruit for maybe a kinship, maybe to a family member, a friend, etc. Because the ultimate goal is for the child to get out of foster care, not live their life in foster care. And so I think, if there was a standardized process, I think also if there was better support for birth parents, even adoptive families and adoptees, because adoption is a lifelong journey. Just because you're adopted, that doesn't mean, yay, everything's great, congratulations. I think there has to be a lot more post-adoption support, because I believe in the state of Pennsylvania, there has been over 3,000, I believe about 3,000 adoptions that have been essentially dissolved. So meaning that the child was adopted, it didn't work out, and they want to give the kid back. And so I feel that a lot of times, families don't have the support. Going through adoption can be a beautiful thing, but it's also a traumatic thing. And so a lot of times, growing up, children, they're going to have behaviors. They're going to want to know where they came from. And so a lot of those things can bring up issues that, the adoptive family is not prepared for. So I think also when scouting for adoptive parents, they need to understand, like, this is a lifelong journey. This is not, oh, I just got a kid and now everything's great. I just think that there should be more education and counseling available, as well as financial assistance and mental health assistance for these kids who are adopted. And then lastly, there's more accountability in child welfare agencies. So some agencies will prolong cases due to systematic insufficiencies or lack of oversight. So they need like better assurance measures. And I think if agencies truly acted in the best interest of the children and the families, this wouldn't really be an issue or a topic of conversation. So, I mean, ultimately, my goal is to ensure that like no child lingers in the system longer than necessary, and that, every family navigating the adoption process receives the support and transparency that they need. So as an adoption assessor, I usually not only assist the child in adoption, but I do a thorough investigation to get all of the child's birth records, their family's records, and everything before they're adopted. And I create essentially a profile for the child. So they have their entire history like in a booklet, so that when they are adopted, that they're able to read that when the adoptive family wants them to, and they have access to all that information, so they can figure out, where was I born, how big was I, like how much did I weigh, how, all of those things are in this, document for them. So, and that was something that I didn't receive when, I was adopted, and I feel like I wish I had that. And that just goes to show you how there's no like uniform way through adoption. And I feel like if there was, a lot of issues could be resolved.
Because of the different state legislation, because that's down to the state to make decisions about how they go about doing this. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, I bet you have some really, really good stories about your work, working with adoption, man. I don't think we have enough time for all of that.
So I believe it was we're in February. So I think it was in October, I did my 500th adoption.
Wow.
Wow. In the last 3 years.
Wow. 500 kids in 3 years. Wow.
500 kids in 3 years. Yeah.
Man. Man, that's awesome. I really appreciate you working in that. I'm sure that could be a thankless kind of job at times, but I think that is a really big deal. It makes sense why that's so close to heart for you.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Yeah. And it also makes sense, like how you can kind of carry some of those same desires and how you notice inefficiencies with firms and how the system is run and trying to help smooth out the process, at least on the compliance side. That makes sense to me, connecting those dots there too.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting because you think it wouldn't go hand in hand, but it kind of does.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can see it. Well, kind of wrapping up here, where can people find more about what you do or get connected to you? How would you direct people?
So I would definitely direct people to our website, www.trustwellcompliance.com. My firm is not on social media, but I am. So if people have questions, they can always reach me on there. But yeah, a lot of the times people just call and ask questions, or we also have, through our website, we have like a consultation section. So you can, write your inquiry in there, but that's how we can get in touch.
Awesome. Well, Aly, I really do appreciate having you on and getting to know a little bit more about your background and specifically what these things that are really close to your heart on. I really appreciate you sharing that with me.
Yes. And thank you so much for having me. It was great.
This was fun. Appreciate you all. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.